Good afternoon. The meeting will now come to order. Welcome to the May 6th, 2021 meeting of the City of Raleigh Appearance Commission. My name is Corey Bates and I am chair of the commission. The Raleigh Appearance Commission is a public body appointed by the City Council that exercises both advisory and quasi-judicial functions. The Appearance Commission's responsibilities relate to zoning and other land use matters, as well as the visual quality and aesthetic characteristics of the city. The first item on today's agenda is a request for design alternates from the city's Unified Development Ordinance. When hearing requests for design alternates, the Appearance Commission sits as a quasi-judicial body and conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing on the request. The process for the hearing the quasi-judicial request is governed by the state law and the city's UDO. And I'm just going to go ahead and roll right into the first case. We do have a quorum of 8 here tonight, expecting one more. So our first case is 901 St. Albans Drive, the Reserve at North Hills. This evidentiary hearing was continued from the April 1st, 2021 commission meeting to today's meeting. The applicant's attorney informed staff ahead of today's meeting that the applicant would like to continue the evidentiary hearing on this matter to the next Appearance Commission quasi-judicial meeting in June. The applicant's attorney is present today, and we will start from hearing the applicant's attorney regarding this continuance request.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Jennifer Ashton from Longleaf Law Partners. Everything that you stated is true. We are asking for another deferral until the June 3rd, I believe it's June 3rd, Appearance Commission meeting. We are still trying to work out some options with city staff, and we would like that extra time to be able to do that. And I can answer any questions you have.
Okay, if there are not any questions from the commission, without any objection, we will continue this evidentiary hearing to our June 3rd, 2021 Appearance Commission meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. While we have a quorum, I understand there may be one or two that need to drop off. I would like to go ahead and kind of go out of order a little bit and review our meeting minutes while we have a quorum. So if I'll give everybody about 1 minute to review those meeting minutes if you haven't already, or if somebody has a motion.
This is Chad. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Chad has a motion to approve. I will second that motion. All in favor to approve? If you can just go ahead and raise your hand, right hand, if I see you. You good, Ralph? Okay, 7. Any opposed?
Is Commissioner Gilmore on?
Yes. I don't see her.
If Commissioner Gilmore is on, if
I don't see her camera.
I'm here.
Can,
Hi.
if your camera's not working, if you just indicate by saying aye or nay.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that's unanimous, and the meeting minutes are approved. All right, thank you very much. We're gonna just keep rolling. So that's kind of the quasi-judicial portion of our meeting tonight, and we are fortunate to have a staff from the city's transportation department and their consultants present and take questions for the New Bern Avenue Bus Rapid Transit project. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to them and for their presentation.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Het Patel. I'm a senior planner for the Department of Transportation Transit Division working on the BRT project. Ira, will you also unmute Mila Vega and Luke Walkmark? They'll be helping me with the presentation. So while I bring up the presentation, if you can unmute them as well.
And I can unmute myself. I'm just waiting for the presentation to show up. Thank you.
All right. right. So I will turn it over to Mila, I guess, to start us off.
Excellent. Thank you so much. My name is Mila Vega. I'm sorry you don't have my video. We are in attendee mode, but hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm with the City of Raleigh Transportation Department Transit Division, and I manage WAKE BRT program implementation, bus rapid transit. Next slide, please. So today we will talk quickly about all the projects within the program, and then we will go specifically into New Bern, station design and branding, and some art integration. And we will have some areas for where we will be asking for your feedback. So this is the overall map of 4 corridors. They all start in downtown Raleigh and go in all 4 different directions. One goes east along New Bern, north along Capitol West Street. We still need to do a little bit more work there. The 3rd corridor is western from downtown Raleigh to downtown Cary. And the final corridor is southern from downtown Raleigh connecting to Garner. New Bern Avenue BRT is the most advanced corridor. It's going into the advanced design, and we will be focusing largely on this corridor today. We anticipate to start construction in 2022, so about a year from today, and the revenue service in early 24. Western and southern corridors, they're tracking on pretty much parallel tracks, moving along through preliminary design. Western is a little bit ahead. It's approximately at 5% design, and southern we will be kicking off design in the next month or so. And northern corridor, as I mentioned, we need to do a little bit more work to determine the service area and preferred routing. Next slide. So this is our WAKE BRT New Bern Avenue corridor. It starts in downtown Raleigh and goes all the way to New Hope Road, the area that has Walmart Supercenter and some of the other commercial areas. Around New Hope, in the vicinity of New Hope, we also will be establishing East Raleigh Transit Center. So essentially it's going to be another transportation hub at the end of the line with park and ride opportunities and opportunities to connect to other services. So you can see the route and you can see circles that designate station areas. These are the areas where we'll have BRT style stations, and we will be sharing some models with you today and asking for your feedback. The corridor is approximately 5.1 miles long, and 3.3 will be run in dedicated lanes. And I believe I do have some slides that will show typical cross sections. We also will be using technologies such as transit signal priority. While it will be pretty much invisible to the riders or anyone on the street, this technology communicates between the traffic signal and the bus. And if the bus is running behind, it allows it to stay on schedule. Next slide. So currently, we're probably all aware that today, the corridor that we are talking about is pretty suburban, very car-oriented. There is definitely a lack of pedestrian and bike accommodations, as well as ADA accommodations. There are some flooding issues and lack of connectivity. Next slide. So as we are advancing WAKE BRT project, we are trying to transform this corridor and make it truly multimodal, safe for bicycles, pedestrians, transit users. We all know that somebody who gets on the bus is either riding a bike or walking to get to the BRT station. We are including multi-use path along the corridor from downtown to Wake Med. We are improving, we're making some upgrades to water, sewer to prevent flooding. Looking at enhanced station design and dedicated transit lanes. And you can see this is one of the images that shows the current model of a station and also shows a BRT lane, dedicated bus lane. We will be talking about stations a little bit more, and we will help go into like discussion of different types of stations. But the one you're looking at is our curbside station that is adjacent to a BRT lane, and this is kind of what it looks like. Next slide. This is a quick overview of the downtown routing for our first BRT corridor. As you can see, it will come in at Eatonton, go down Blunt Street, take right on Martin. The dashed lines on this image show sections that will not have dedicated lanes. The rest will be dedicated lanes called business business access and transit. And what it means is it's predominantly used for BRT buses. However, regular cars can get into the lane to make a turn, say, into a garage, a parking lot, or access a business. So there will be some limited access for regular vehicles. So as I said, it will turn on Martin, go up Wilmington Street, and then Morgan, take right on Morgan, that will eventually merge into New Bern. So that's kind of the flow of the first BRT corridor through downtown. Next, please, next slide. So station locations, and I know I talked a little bit, about this little circles designating station locations. You can see the current naming convention for the stations. The logic behind that is try to be as consistent as possible to the current naming conventions that we use for the Raleigh system, and really focus more on street or cross streets. This way, it's as convenient for the current users as well as somebody who's new to the area. They can easily Google a location and figure out where they need to go. Next slide. So I mentioned running way options, and this is what it looks like for various segments of the corridor. You can see in downtown, and then going out towards going east, you can see the paired one-way streets. We will have right business access and transit lanes in those locations. So you can see an image that shows a typical cross section for that location. You can see bat lane, so business access and transit, we call it bat lane, on the right side of the roadway. Then you have two general purpose lanes adjacent to it, parking, and then pedestrian accommodation. So that will be from downtown to approximately Pool Road intersection. Then heading from Pool Road to Wake Med, the second segment, called Median Running Transit Way. And this is as premium as you can get when it comes to bus rapid transit. It's a fully exclusive dedicated facility in the center of the roadway where buses are running, and it is separated from general purpose lanes by buffers. So there's going to be plants and strips separating the facility. And then there's everything else: GP lanes, general purpose lanes, and pedestrian accommodations, either sidewalks or multi-use path. And then from Wake Med on to New Hope Road, buses will operate in mixed traffic, so there won't be noticeable infrastructure changes from what you see today. However, they will be supported by BRT-style stations, slightly scaled down to meet NCDOT regulations, current regulations. But they will also be, the system will also be supported by transit signal priority, that technology I mentioned earlier that will allow buses to stay on time if they start falling behind. So this way, the service will still be reliable and efficient and on time. And I think this is my last slide. Actually, no, I'm covering the schedule, and then I'm going to hand it over to Luke, who is with Neighboring Concepts, and he will be talking more about the architectural characteristics of station design. So this is our current schedule, and as I mentioned, we are currently in the advanced design. The next big milestone is end of this year, where we'll be completing a final design and right-of-way acquisition. We have this project stays pretty much within the right-of-way, but there are certain a couple of areas, couple of stations where we need tiny slivers of right-of-way to accommodate a station. And the rest of the right-of-way is temporary construction easements necessary to construct the project. So they That's what we will be working on until the end of this calendar year. And then we will be moving into construction in 2022. And Sean Driscoll is, I believe, is on this call too, but Sean is with engineering services, and he plays an important role managing the engineering component of this project to make sure that we meet all of the NCDOT and City of Raleigh requirements for this process. And then ultimately, the goal is to have BRT open and ready for everyone to ride in early 2024. So with this, I'm going to hand it over to Luke to talk about our process of station design and some of the architectural components. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mila. So my name is Luke Volkmar. I'm an architect with Neighboring Concepts out of Charlotte. We're an architecture and planning firm who's been providing architecture and transit planning services across the Carolinas for about 20 years now. We're very privileged to serve the city of Raleigh and HNTB on this project, understand what it means, how important it is to both the city and the residents. This could be a life-changing project for residents along the corridor. So really diving into our station design.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, please. Luke, could you spell your last name for me, please?
Yes, it's V like Victor, Olkmar.
Thank you very, very much. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. So looking at the core goals that are driving the design of the project, these are core goals that were established back in preliminary engineering, so many years ago at this point. So number one, there's this idea of uniformity or consistency, the idea that BRT stations are uniform or consistent across the entire system. They need to be consistent and provide a high level of customer experience across all stations. They need to be recognizable for branding specific to the BRT. And then outside of that, specific components at each station have the ability to be customized based on context or ridership. So, there may be a material change or a specific component may be swapped out to be specific to a certain locality or context. Number two is this idea of scale, that the design should be able to scale up and down depending on context. There's an existing style. So, there's an existing transit architecture style in Raleigh, and we want to be mindful and respectful of that and respond to it. Number four is this idea of operations and maintenance. Materials need to be easy to obtain, easy to be replaced. They need to be very strong and endure, the harsh environment. And if a material or if a station goes down, that certainly affects ridership and operations. So we want to make sure that these are long lasting and built to endure and sustain. And then finally, cost. We want to make sure that the design is fiscally responsible, that we are specifying materials made in America, and to the best of our ability, materials and products that support our local economy. So here's our station design schedule. So Mila went over the overall project schedule. Looking at the specific station design schedule, back in the fall, we conducted several peer reviews, station design and preference surveys. We'll take a look at the results of that shortly. We also held workshops with our municipal partners. Those were interactive to the greatest extent that they can be in our virtual setting, but we got some really good feedback on what this project means to them, what's most important to them, and what they'd like to see in the design. So really this spring is digesting all that information and compiling it into the conceptual renderings and the conceptual design that you all have seen and will see more today. And then this summer, we're going to be working on finalizing station design. So really, those of you who are familiar with kind of the architectural, the vertical terms, we're right in the meat of design development right now. Kind of in early design development, we finished our schematic design, received great feedback, and working on refining that throughout going forward. So what feedback did we hear this past fall? So here's a sample question. What form, shape, and style of the station is most appropriate for the Wake BRT system? It was loud and clear. We did not want traditional forms, but wanted to see more of a modern or artistic form. Emerging themes included natural materials that were, sleek but yet welcoming. And then we saw lots of good feedback on kind of steel and glass and natural wood. So this idea of, materials that can sustain the environment around us, reflect kind of technology and the tech side that we know, and, we all think of the area, but then making sure that, those materials aren't harsh, but they're still welcoming and inviting too. Some other important takeaways. So we also engaged our municipal partners on what components of the station can be customized and what shall remain uniform across the system. So this idea for that core goal number 1 for consistency and uniformity, things like benches and trash cans and things that would be consistent across the system for maintenance or operations, those need to be remain the same. Platform configurations that are based on bus dimensions, ADA standards, those are all elements that need to be uniform and consistent across the system. But then there's other elements that, largely the vertical elements that can be customized, and we'll see some options on what that looks like in the material palette. And then we have windscreens that include artwork and be reflective of the communities that we're in. So those are all elements that we got good feedback on back in the fall as well. So looking at our station types, these are our 6 station types across the Wake BRT system. We have 5 of those on the New Bern corridor. Urban core is what you would expect, those that are in downtown or just outside of downtown. Intermodal stations are stations that back up to the multi-use path. Split island stations are those that are in a curve, are in a divided road and are in the median way. They're typically across the intersection from each other. So you'd have a station that would be serving the outbound direction and one that's serving inbound. Peripheral stations are those that are sort of at the end of the line or at the outskirts where you may have reduced amenities or a smaller boarding area. Suburban areas are those that are in between kind of the peripheral and your urban core. And then shared median, we don't have those on New Bern, but those are essentially a station that would be in a divided roadway, but you can load and unload from each side of the station. So the station would be serving both inbound and outbound buses. So our conceptual station design, kind of going back to our core goals of uniformity, scale, existing style, operations and maintenance and cost. There's this idea of a single bold vertical element that would serve as vertical wayfinding, serve as kind of the station marker from a distance, and also serve as an element that can have different materials on it based on context. And then joining that with essentially a repeatable bay or a canopy form that can be prefabricated to the greatest extent possible. So we want to be mindful of construction time, especially in the urban settings, where there's businesses out in front. So the hope is that we can come to the site with a prefabricated steel canopy element and really reduce downtime as much as possible for those businesses, or reduce disturbance to those businesses as much as possible. So the idea is that there's a vertical bold element that anchors the station, and then the structural bays can repeat and extend as required based on context and ridership. I have a fire truck going by, just a second. Okay, thank you, Ed. So what does that look like? Taking that conceptual design and putting it at the rendering form. This is this would be an example of an intermodal station, which backs up to the multi-use path. So again, you can see the materials that are reflected from the community feedback we had. There's steel, there's glass, there's this wood soffit to add warmth. We're working with lighting schemes to help make sure that's emphasized, especially at nighttime. And then the station includes a variety of amenities: seating, weather protection, ADA accessible boarding, that's level boarding, so we'll be able to roll straight from the platform onto the bus from a wheelchair. There's digital touchscreen signage, so there'll be an interactive display that'll include information about the system, but also potentially information about the area around and the neighborhood around the station. Real-time arrival information, off-board ticketing to make sure the loading and unloading process is done as quick as possible. Emergency phone, art, and then some that aren't noted as well is USB charging. And then we're working to make sure that these stations are also solar ready, so that essentially they'll have the infrastructure in place to be able to provide solar panels. So again, looking at our corridor along New Bern Avenue, these are station types closer to town or closer to downtown. And that downtown core, you have the urban core stations. Working outwards, you go to the suburban, intermodal, split island, and then peripheral stations. So our main station on Wilmington Street, or the Go Raleigh station, here's our existing conditions right now. So the station itself is going to be constructed in the lane where the white box truck is currently existing. So we're working to take over that lane of traffic. You can see what that looks like right now. So this is an example of an urban core station. We're going to be very mindful about access and transparency and visibility to the businesses behind them. You know, they have loading and unloading deliveries that they need to do sometimes daily. And this station itself is a little bit more transparent. It provides more access compared to the other station types. So you can walk directly to the station from behind the platform and up. So our next station that we'll take a look at, this will be an example of the Split Island station. This is out on New Bern Avenue, further out on the corridor at Clarendon Crescent. It's a station where the station itself is actually in the median of the roadway. So in the foreground, we're actually looking at 2 bus lanes, and then the traffic is in the essentially the automotive traffic is in the passenger or in the traffic lanes that are behind the station. It's much different than the urban core station. Here we want to be very mindful of pedestrian safety. They need to feel safe. They need to feel comfortable. So instead of having more, transparency and more openness, we're trying to be very protective in the station. So there'll be specialty lighting at the pedestrian intersection, and then that entire path across the median and up to the station itself. There's crash barriers along the backside of the station, and then vertical walls there to help with noise and to help with the visual distraction from the traffic behind you. So where we headed with station design, we have a second round of public input that's ongoing right now. That public input should close in the coming weeks, and that'll provide some great input on station design that will be incorporated into our 100% design development documents. We're coordinating with landscaping, art, branding, and roadway design, doing a lot of coordination with public utilities, that scope of work right now. And then also there's a station standards and BRT standards document that the Greater Wake Project is doing that we're providing support for. So sample public engagement questions. We're getting feedback on the form of the canopy right now. You know, the one on the left is a single slope canopy. The one on the right has a little V shape. We call it the double slope, but it welcomes the bus in and sends it out. It speaks to speed and transit a little bit more than the single slope, but it may not be appropriate for all conditions. So we're seeking input on the form right now. Additionally, I think the next one would be the lighting. Yeah. So thanks, Het. We're also seeking feedback on lighting design. Again, the option on the left would be a more typical kind of clean, simple lighting design. We try to illuminate the underside of the soffit to provide that idea of warmth, but we need to be mindful of glare and into adjacent properties, and then light pollution as well. And then the lighting option 2 over on the right, again, is this idea of speed or transportation. It's more random, but definitely a little bit more dynamic. And then materiality as well. So this bold element is paired with a seat wall at some of our station types. So what materials are we going to be using here? What materials are best reflective of local context? So concrete, metal panel, masonry, and red brick are samples right now. And Het, I think that may wrap up my station design portion.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. So my name is Het Patel, again, senior planner with City of Raleigh. I'll be going through the rest of the presentation and finishing on how the Artist in Residence program is working and branding components and how they kind of tie into the station design, as well as the larger system standards and a New Bern project. So last year we had chosen Dare Coulter, who's also on this meeting, if you have any specific questions for her later, as the Artist in Residence to support the art integration of the Wake BRT program. And what I mean by that is, on a system level, the Artist in Residence is working with Luke and the Neighboring Concepts team to identify some opportunities for art integration, which we're calling blank canvases. And that's applicable to the entire system. So wherever on station design, there are opportunities for art to integrate, we're working with the Artist in Residence DARE to try to identify those places. Specifically along New Bern Avenue, DARE is working with the community to create some conceptual ideas and inspiration for art and what can be included as we go through design to identify some opportunities and maybe come up with some ideas that we can take further in the next step. So currently she is also looking for feedback from stakeholders, and that's on our live virtual open house website. So if you take any of the BRT surveys that are live right now for Western Corridor, New Bern, or the Southern Corridor, there are a couple art questions that are there at the end of it, which they're the same on all 3 surveys. So if you take one, it kind of addresses all of them, but there is an opportunity for feedback related to art from DARE in that. Moving on to the branding process and how that integrates into the overall Wake BRT systems and the station design. At the same time we started station design, we also started the branding process in the summer of last year by doing research and peer review. We developed a branding technical committee, which I'll get into in the next slide. And then since then, we've had a couple surveys, again, getting at some larger pictures, themes of what people want to resonate with a brand, what people want to sort of tie into with the BRT from a branding perspective. And we've worked with our municipal partners again and the branding technical committee to address some of those survey feedback and come up with some initial concepts. And so currently, we're in the spring 2021 branding survey number 2 phase, which is we have some logo elements that I'll share a little bit later on, and we're seeking feedback on those logo elements. And we hope to have a final branding design concept by the end of summer that can then be integrated into Luke's work and the station design work, because you kind of see that the current renderings, they have potential places where branding can be applied, but we haven't quite gotten there yet to where we are showing branding applied to the station design. So I mentioned the Branding Technical Committee. The Branding Technical Committee was formed to provide feedback within the branding process. It includes members from City of Raleigh, Town of Cary, Town of Garner, Wake County, Capital Area, MPO, Go Triangle. And they helped with the process of going through the peer review report, looking at the summary from that, identifying some initial branding concept questions and feedback that we were looking from the public as well as stakeholders. So they've been essential throughout the entire process in guiding the process and coming up with the initial brand concepts. So the initial phase that we went through, the data gathering and public feedback, various different brands were reviewed, and these are all BRT brands throughout the nation. The closest most people may recognize is the Pulse in Richmond, but we did look at a lot of different ones and see how they used colors, how they used slogans, and a lot of other different components within their brand and how that integrated with the rest of the system. We held 3 stakeholder listening sessions within our stakeholder committee, which is a smaller group of people. We had about 20 to 25 participants in each one of those listening sessions, and we kind of got to talking about, you know, what different things that people resonate with in the Triangle region in technology, arts. Do you care about speed and some of these other things? And so that has led to basically where we are in our current process and unveiling that initial concept of brands. I mentioned that we did have that initial survey requesting feedback on the BRT brand. We had about 500 responses. I said three stakeholder listening sessions with about 60 participants. One of the main things that came out of that process is that question number 2, out of the 4 options, which BRT brand style do you find most appealing? So we kind of heard, you know, this BRT sleek silver rise up to the top. And then there was also this opportunity to tie into the existing Go brand. And the Go brand has been well received in the region, and a lot of, you know, transit agencies or authorities are using the Go brand. And so it would have, some of the things that we were kind of identifying were that it would be essential to sort of integrate with that existing Go brand and not go too far away from it, and sort of make sure that that connection to the regional transit system exists. And then another key theme that came out of that process was developing a bold and inviting color palette, not, you know, utilizing pastels or something that was pretty low on the feedback, public participation feedback that we received. So where we are right now in spring 2021, our initial brand concepts include, again, tying back into that Go brand with the chevron, identification of orange as a color, a bold color that was identified, and then pursuing, again, the extension of the Go brand as a Go Plus iteration. And on the next slide, you will see the 6 different logo elements that we are currently looking for feedback on those BRT surveys on the virtual open house website. So there is slight variations in each logo there. You know, there's a drop shadow, one without a shadow, one with some negative space, plus in italics, plus not in italics, or separated from the physical chevron. So currently we are collecting and looking to analyze the public feedback on these logo elements, and that will go into the development of the final brand recommendation and will include the larger brand guideline documents of how this brand can be utilized, along with the color palette and fonts. And then the next steps of the branding process are also kind of developing the larger, you know, look for how this brand is applied on a bus wrap, and then how this brand is integrated into the station design concepts and station design work that is happening. So to end my presentation, I just kind of wanted to highlight again, we've mentioned that we had a lot of feedback opportunities currently. We are in this virtual open house setting for the month of May. It started on April 26th and extends out to May 21st, where we have some short videos for each active BRT project. So, we kind of gave you a high level overview of a lot of these things, but if you are more interested, on the BRT Virtual Open House website, there is more detail for each corridor as well as each BRT project activity element that we kind of went through pretty quickly. There are 3 surveys that are live, one for New Bern, one for Western, one for Southern. We are planning live question and answer sessions as well for all 3 of those corridors, with the first one being next Monday at 6 p.m. for the Western corridor, and next Tuesday again at 6 p.m. for New Bern, and then the following Thursday, May 20th, for the Southern corridor. And so again, I want to mention, and I think I've said this a couple times, but you don't necessarily have to take all 3 surveys. If you're more interested in one corridor over the other, you could take, the survey for that corridor, but the BRT branding, BRT station design, the artist and residence questions are tied to each survey. So you would get to answer those regardless of which survey you decided to take. But if you're interested in all 3 corridors, more than feel free to take any of the surveys. And I think that is all we had for our presentation at this point. I'll keep the slideshow open just in case someone has any particular questions. So we want to go back to a slide.
Het, Mila, Luke, Sean, Dare, everybody, that was a great presentation. There's a lot to digest there, between the branding, the station design, the art, the engineering aspect of it. It's a lot to digest. So I do encourage people to go check out the virtual open house and take a look through it. But yeah, are there any questions? I know I have a few, but are there any questions from the commission? I guess one question I had, and maybe this is with the station design, is there, I'm thinking about the median, kind of the center median option, and I'm assuming these buses load from either side. Are any of these back to back? Or are they kind of side by side? How does that work? Would it be one that loads on, both directions? And then I guess with that question, just really quick, is, there's a lot of hard surfaces and we're capturing a lot. We've got a lot of roof area. So I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity to do anything with that water. Is it being captured? Is it being dumped into one area? How do we resolve that amount of water that is coming down on that roof?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm happy to answer that. So we do have that station type that you just described. If you go back to our station prototypes, maybe had. So we do have stations that are back to back in a shared median, where you'd have one platform that has buses on each side of it. So it would unload from each side. We just don't have that condition on the New Bern Avenue corridor right now. That is in the future corridors that are coming. But with the roadway geometry, the way the intersections and signals are currently existing, that doesn't exist on New Bern right now. And you're right, there is a lot of hard surfaces out there. Thinking about passenger comfort, passenger safety, trying to think about what we can do to make sure that it's first of all safe and welcoming. I think that's where we started. But there's, I think we mentioned we're still working with the landscaping team. So, at the backside of the stations, that is a vegetated median right now. We're going to have native plantings that are going to be part of the project. I'm sure you're aware of Susan Haskell. Her team is leading the landscape architecture design of this. And we're capturing all the water that lands on the roof of the station. And we are working with her and the grading team to look at bioswales on the backside and the median, or if that's not practical based on roadway geometry or existing conditions, we're going to be feeding that into the storm sewer. Otherwise, we are trying to divert water also into the BRT running way instead of into traffic. Trying to be mindful of, we don't want some of these areas, especially in the urban areas just outside of town. There's older stormwater infrastructure. Some of the drainage isn't great, but we certainly don't want to overwhelm what the current system capacity is. Let me know if I missed anything else there, if you'd like to chime in too.
I think there was one question or comment about style of vehicles. I don't know if you've addressed that, but we are looking at 60-foot articulated buses with doors on both sides. Even though we don't need that design for New Bern, we are trying to build fleet uniformity across the entire system. So as we add additional lines, we can rotate the buses for more efficient operation.
So my understanding, I'm looking at the center section of the New Bern, looked like there was a center median kind of bus only lane. Did they then merge back out to the right to pick up passengers at stations, or do they not pick them up in the middle in the center median? Did I miss that? Can you go back to the kind of the overall?
Ed, can you
Yeah.
jump to the cross street maybe?
Yeah, kind of that
Well,
yellow area, I guess. I believe
So-
that's where. Is that where it was? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, so within the yellow is the split island station, which again, what Luke mentioned is, I guess this would be a good example. In this location, which is New Bern and Clarendon at Crescent, you have a split island station. So this red lane that you see here is a BRT lane going towards downtown. So the bus coming in here stops here and then heads into downtown. This lane right here as well is a BRT lane. So the two vehicular lanes going towards Wake Med would be sort of on the south side of where the station is. And then the station, if you're headed out towards New Hope, is actually on the other side of the intersection. So that's where the stations within the median running transit way are split on either side of an intersection, and depending on which direction you're traveling in, you would go to the station that facilitates that movement. But what Luke mentioned, we do have some shared median stations within our typology where instead of this station that's been shown right now having boarding just on this side, you would be able to board on either side. And that's where the buses with doors on both sides come in and are more, allow for that more design flexibility, because then you can have the BRT lanes on either side of the station, and you have the buses coming in and being able to pick up passengers on either side.
Yeah, we just don't have that design for New Bern. We will have the design potential for western and maybe southern corridors.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission?
I was really happy to hear you all talk about stormwater. I think I would just encourage you to keep really thinking bold in terms of stormwater with this project. There's so much emphasis on transit and it sometimes can get lost, but this is a huge opportunity to rethink how we deal with stormwater in Raleigh, and not just kind of do no harm, but to capture water in a different way from these road areas. It's obviously not working now because it floods in even just a small rain. But just, I wanted to push you all to think about like bigger stormwater capture and storage areas that are subsurface, and just, thinking boldly about that, not just a small bioswale, but bigger detention areas that, could be really beautiful as well. So be excited to see how the designs turn out.
Mila, I can expand upon that a little bit. Hi, my name is Sean Driscoll. I'm in engineering services with the City of Raleigh in the roadway design and construction department. So just kind of expand upon what Luke was saying, we also have a couple areas where we're going to utilize some green stormwater infrastructure where we are capturing some of that, stormwater runoff coming off the road, keeping it within the existing right of way, treating it, and then, which mostly removes the nitrogen and phosphorus, and sending that into the existing stormwater pipe stormwater system. So as y'all know now, most of New Bern has a soft shoulder as open channel, collecting all that stormwater. So as part of the project, we're constructing a multi-use path on the south side of the roadway, like on the New Bern side. And that extends from basically downtown all the way to Wake Med, just a touch past Wake Med, past Sunnybrook. And in the process of constructing that, we're constructing curb and gutter along the entire way as well. So, and in doing so, we need to capture that stormwater. So there will be new piped stormwater through that entire area with, catch basins all along the way to address some of those flooding issues. We've done stormwater analysis and have also, gone out there after high rainfall events and look at some of those areas. So, places like Raleigh Boulevard, which we know is challenging for stormwater, we're going to do our best to address all those issues with all this new piped stormwater infrastructure we're putting in.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think the key is to capture and treat as much as possible. And that this, like Martha said, I think this is a huge opportunity to show that, Raleigh's on board with doing something a little more contemporary and modern in our thinking of how we treat this water runoff than to just try to get rid of it quick. Appreciate that.
Yeah, we are looking into as many locations as possible. The grades in which we can construct stormwater infrastructure are very important, which is kind of challenging through parts of New Bern, but we have identified some areas that we will be able to treat some of that runoff.
Great. Any other questions?
This is Chris Roberts. Thank you guys for the presentation. This has been really great. I caught the comment that these are going to be PV ready, and I was just curious if a study had been done. It almost seems like if you put some solar panels on these with battery backup, that you could just take them off the grid altogether, the electrical grid, versus having, who knows how much it's going to cost to bring new service over, set a transformer, go through all that rigmarole. If it could just be fed by the PV, I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Hi, Chris. So I don't think we've gone down that road yet. I think we're resigned to providing continuous, uninterrupted power for these stations. More for the real-time arrival signage, things that the ticketing and vending machines, things that we know that need to have power and have continuous power. We love that idea. We really do. But I think talking through the logistics with City Raleigh, and maybe you may have some thoughts here too.
Excuse me, Chairman, I'm sorry. With the screen up, I can't see who's responding. So if you would please, when you respond, please say your name first. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, this is Luke, Luke Volkmar again. So yes, well, I think that would be a great thing to add to the project. I'm not sure if the technology is there yet and the service and reliability is there yet. So I think we're trying to make we will be making the stations solar ready so that when the technology is in place, that we have that opportunity to do so.
This is Mila Vega with Transportation Transit. Yes, Luke, you captured it correctly. We are looking at potential adding solar. This is our first corridor. If we can do that, we can potentially test it, see how it works, how reliable it is. But there's so much technology and the kiosks, the vending machines, the real-time information, those giant iPads that essentially have all the information about the system, can also display art, that we need to make sure that stations are always connected and there's no failure. And we just need to make sure that we have an opportunity to test it out before 100% relying on solar only. But we are definitely thinking about it.
Thank you.
This is Marcus Tuttle. I think along those lines, I think with the design that I've seen from these renderings, now having sort of a closed off ceiling to them versus some of the traditional sort of glass canopies that we've seen over top of these, we've got a real opportunity to add that solar without being a significant aesthetic impact. So I think I would just encourage that we continue to do that investigation. Along the lines of passenger comfort, I wonder if there's anything, and maybe this is a question for Luke, anything that's been you've considered as far as fans or something that are sort of low energy to help with passenger comfort on a cold, or excuse me, a hot or high humidity day as we wait for the buses.
Look, I can jump in and then feel free to add. This is Mila Vega with Transportation Transit. So the beauty of bus rapid transit is you are not going to be hanging out at the station for a long time. The frequency of service during peak hours is 10 minutes. So ideally, by the time you get to the bus, a BRT station, you will hang out about 5 minutes, 7 minutes if you missed another bus, and the bus will be coming to pick you up. So there's not sufficient time for you really to, get extremely cold or extremely hot, just because you will be on the bus very quickly, and the buses all have AC and Wi-Fi. So that's why we looked at some of these considerations, but we prioritized other amenities over, say, installing fans, just because, again, the idea behind the system is that you're not waiting for a bus for a very long time. Luke can go into a little bit more of considerations how we talked about the coverage area for the canopy. Luke, would you like to cover that?
Yeah, thanks, Mila. So this is a good example right here. We've had some really good, healthy discussion on how much of the waiting area and how much of the platform do we actually cover with roof area for shade. Thinking that, maybe you actually want to be sitting out in the sun during the winter months or during some of the morning spring days like today. So we're covering approximately 2/3 of the station right now, with the thought that that's enough coverage to make sure that all the loading and unloading is weather protected, but then also providing some options for passenger comfort who may want to sit in the sun during the colder days. Looking at windscreens too, we're going to have vertical legs or perpendicular legs on the windscreen. So if it is a windy day and you want to get out the wind, you'll have the opportunity to kind of shield yourself and do so. So I think we're trying to make these as flexible and as comfortable as possible, given the environment that we're in, and not designing to the harsh condition in one way or the other. Some of our team members from the project are in Minneapolis, and they're amazed at the stations compared to what they see in the harsh winters that they have.
Great, thank you both.
Hi, this is Patrice Gilmore. Has any consideration been made for proximity of these stations to different bike share or other accommodations like that, so that when a person departs the bus, that they would also be in close proximity to bike share or any other type of service like that?
Mila, do you want to answer, or do you want me to?
I'm sorry, I had to step away for a second. Please answer.
All right, no worries. So yeah, we do have at least 3 bike share locations that we're identifying within that downtown network, within the urban core network, that we anticipate a bike share to be actually either right on the other side of the station or in that vicinity of the station. The other benefit or amenity that the BRT vehicles and going with that 60-foot larger articulated bus provides is the opportunity to allow bicycles on the bus instead of having to put them on the front. And so that is also something that our vehicles will most likely accommodate, is a bicycle inside the bus. And so people that are bringing their bikes with them then can actually just walk on the bus with the bike.
I think the only other question I have is just wondering, from an urban standpoint, what kind of feedback you've received, maybe not just from Raleigh, but other locations with some of these some of these tenants that are behind the bus stations. I'm looking at this image right here, and a lot of them are 30 feet wide in deep spaces, and so they don't have a lot of street frontage already. Just wondering what your thought is with that.
Sean, would you like to talk about our coordination with downtown businesses?
Sure, Mila. This is Sean Driscoll with Engineering Services. So just to reiterate, like the station we're looking at now would be at Wilmington, and this is going to be built within one of the existing lanes that are out there now. So overall, we're going to be reducing the lanes across the current section through there. So I believe there's 4 now, 2 general purpose lanes and 2 for parking. So the walking area behind the station should still be about the same. Like Luke had mentioned, especially for the Wilmington station, we've really focused on transparency at this location to ensure that the businesses around this area feel like the BRT isn't impacting them in any way. And HNTB our design consultant has worked with other cities to construct BRT stations. And there's been some concern with businesses in other locations, but we feel confident that with the BRT station, it should bring in more walkable traffic like within this area and hopefully increase business. We are working directly with the Downtown Raleigh Alliance, and not only going over like parking impacts and loading zone impacts, but also in detail going through the new pavement marking plan that we're going to be seeing downtown. At the 30% design, we met with a handful, 6, 7, 8 businesses, which we provided specific presentations to their locations to discuss impacts and mitigations. We're going through that exercise again right now through the DRA as well. So they're hooking us up with more businesses downtown. So, we can talk about the parking and the impacts to their area. So we've been, I assure you, doing as much possible outreach as we can to solicit feedback from those businesses downtown to, even something as small as how to access their grease trap. We're going through that to make sure the impacts are as minimal as possible, and while still, they'll be able to maintain the service that business is providing. But is that good, Mila, or do you have anything else to add?
This is Patel, Transportation Transit. I was going to add one thing, Sean. I think, and Luke has mentioned this as well when he was presenting, when we had the municipal partners workshops with station design, as well as other City of Raleigh departments that are part of that project management team as well. A lot of the discussions we had, including with the Urban Design Center, was about permeability and flow, especially in that urban core setting of that pedestrian being able to access the station from various different locations and not feeling like you have, only 1 or 2 locations from the sides that you can kind of access the station. So compared to some of the other stations, like where pedestrian safety is more in tune in the median running way, there are less glass panels here to allow for more of that visibility to the businesses in the back, as well as allow for more visibility and permeability for pedestrians entering and exiting the BRT station, and sort of trying to make sure that the BRT station is integrated seamlessly into that urban flow of the sidewalk environment within the downtown setting. And I think that applies to, you know, where if a station were like this were to be in downtown Cary or one of the other municipal partners, and how that station would function.
Thank you for that. Any other last minute questions?
Hey, folks. I had one question and just some comments. This is Adam. I noticed at the beginning of the presentation, y'all talked about multi-use path being a part of the design, but then when I saw the cross sections for the BAT and the MRT, I didn't see the MUPs on the cross section. So I was just wondering how you're showing that and where the MUPs are and how you're incorporating it into the kind of framework of what you're doing.
Sean, would you like me to?
Yeah, for sure. I can expand upon that. This is Sean Driscoll. So the multi-use path starts at the Morgan station at the intersection of Morgan and Blunt. And that multi-use path runs along New Bern on the south side of the road from that location all the way to Wake Med, just past the Sunnybrook intersection. And it fluctuates between 10 and 12 feet through there where we have available right-of-way. But bicycle traffic will be able to utilize that multi-use path to access all stations.
So it's a protected bike lane, protected dedicated bike lane along with pedestrians, or it's kind of a general path?
It's for both. I mean, it's for pedestrians, but we make it wide enough, and it's constructed with asphalt instead of concrete, like a sidewalk. And we make it wide enough to allow for that seamless traffic in both directions. But it is worth mentioning that over by basically the Bojangles on Edenton, we're constructing a sidewalk from that location all the way to Wake Mid past Sunnybrook as well, on the north side of the road.
Okay, like a 6-foot sidewalk?
Yes, that'll be 6-foot sidewalk there. Yeah, it's going to be a 6-foot sidewalk. There's a lot of utilities through there, like Duke Energy poles. So, you know, in some areas we might do a little weaving in and out, and sometimes they're 5 at certain locations, but the design is 6 feet all the way.
So cyclists traveling into town along this corridor would be either on the road or on that sidewalk, that 6-foot sidewalk?
So cyclists coming into town, we would encourage them to use a multi-use path the entire way. So at every intersection, we are updating all handicap ramps to make sure they're all ADA compliant. All new intersections are going to get, you know, full new pavement markings, high visibility crosswalks, signalized pedestrian crosswalks. So in the multi-use path, for the most part, sits anywhere between like 3 to 6 feet off the back of off the back side of curb. There are areas that are real tight, like over by the cemetery. We have NEPA constrictions where some of those facilities might be like right on the back side of curb, but for the most part, there's that buffer between back of curb and where the multi-use path starts.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. I think the other thing that I kind of thought that I had similar to Corey and Martha was that these stations, you know, they're there's a lot of cool things about them, and I appreciate the thought that went into them. But they do seem to rely quite a bit on architectural solutions for environmental issues, and I think we know that there are some really good landscape solutions. You know, some of those bollards or safety walls could be, you know, planters, and your stormwater could be used to accentuate these stations. I know that having those canopies is really thoughtful, but for solar, kind of more dynamic seasonal solar protection, deciduous tree canopies match with kind of the values of the city of Raleigh and city of Oaks, you know, giving you good shade in the summer and more sun in the winter. And I heard you all talking about wind screens. Evergreen shrubs are great for wind screens. So just, you know, being aware that there are more options than, you know, glass and hard materials for some of these environmental solutions, and incorporating them when you can seems like something that would align well with what we're doing in Raleigh.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit to that. When you showed the like the choice between the roof design, where one had a low point in the middle, like, to me that is a question that should be driven a lot by stormwater and how stormwater is going to be treated. So, you know, just thinking about those two things, like in coordination with one another as part of the process, is important.
All right. Well, we thank you all for coming and presenting tonight. This was fantastic and a great job. I think it's exciting, and this is why we have an appearance commission in Raleigh. We have a lot of good questions and a lot of good people here that are experts in this field. So we appreciate you guys coming before us today.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on. Carter, do you have anything to add for our moving into our reports?
I do not at this time. I think some of you know that Lee Stevens is no longer with the city. Unfortunately, she took a job in Charlotte with land design. She had been working remotely for several months. Moved there when her boyfriend got a really good promotion there. So I will probably have her come to a meeting coming up so that we can kind of give her a send off and probably look in the next week or so for some more information on both the Sir Walter Raleigh Awards and the Legacy Project. So don't have anything for that right now.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Anybody else have anything to add? Candace, do you have anything to add? All right.
No.
Great. With that being said, I appreciate you all coming this evening, and we look forward to our next meeting in a couple weeks. Look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you all.
Thanks, Corey.
Thanks, Corey. Bye.